Well, the more time I have here in solitude, the more I seem to want. With seeing how many videos I can make in a day. And how much time do I need to myself? I guess I'm drinking it up. It's like if your dog goes to the bowl and you're like, how much do you need to fucking drink? Do you have diabetes? What have you? And it's like, I'm drinking up this place all fucking day long. And then once I stop drinking or something stumbles along, I might go. But I'm managing. My stretching has taken everything out of my neck, my shoulder, and my back. Several videos ago, I did a very particular stretch. And I didn't even bother to mention that it took the pain out of my shoulder, my back, everything. I do it at least once a day, sometimes twice. No matter what I'm doing, sitting or walking, it just puts me right where I need to be. It's amazing. And maybe it's because I'm lazy, but I think the fact that I found such an efficient way to use my body is indicative that I found an efficient way to use my life and my mind. These little things like that, I think, recommend me in some way. Hey, look, this guy figured out how to stretch his body in, if need be, under 2 minutes and do all the stretching that he needs to do for the day. And he can do it almost anywhere, whenever he needs to. It's like, that's pretty cool. And it's good for your brain. And it's good for your brain. That's what I do, stuff for your brain. And I do stuff that's good for your brain. So I think this is a good debut. This is my new channel. It's called Two Gays Talking. It has a story behind it because it has I did a video with a guy. And then today, of all days, it finally dawned on me where the word woman, how it comes into the Bible and Adam and Eve, and how it's a story about homosexual reproduction of homosexuality. And all of the things become. It's wow. It's absolutely fascinating. What a dizzying world to. But cool that you can take this world and work it back through biblical Kabbalah, and then you can see, just like you can look at 9/11 and look at what are the ideas that led to 9/11, and they're similar to the sets of ideas that led to biblical Kabbalah in Egypt and the mythology of so-called Greece and Rome, which never existed, which were actually language and military research and development enterprises occupying certain illusory dimensions of space and time. You know, the semblance of which is reproduced in this earth, but almost has more substance when fucking psychics like Sylvia Browne say that that's you go to Greece and Rome when you go to heaven, and it's all just beautiful Grecian temples. You know, and so the world of Greece and Rome is in a weird sort of way reproduced in the astral as it is in this sort of interpolated history of the world that has some, you know, late 18th, 17th, 18th century masonry added to it. These so-called places. So yeah, it's fascinating. Bringing Jesus to Earth, bringing Rome and Greece to history, bringing history to the stage, to the movies, bringing World War II to people's imaginations, the way Hermes and Jupiter were brought to their imaginations, and wars were fought, and great battlefields and their fates determined, won or lost. And so World War I and II and Vietnam and 9/11 and the War of the Sexes, and I think there is a war of the sexes as much as men and women are equally hated by the system and are pitted against one another in many cases. Because especially if either or both sustain this kind of pathogenic hatred towards the opposite sex or towards man, regardless of what gender you are, or towards the mother. And it's amazing how much hatred comes in on what people consider love and protection and veneration. Millions of Catholics venerate the Virgin Mary. I never met a Catholic or a family of Catholics in my life who looked like they had any fucking interest in any fucking love in man, I'll tell you that. And I can guess probably not much in the mother of man, I suppose, that you could hate man that much. So, I'm at best saying that this hatred actually comes from the infection of a stratospheric mold that needed to almost reinvent space and time to deal with the prison that it found itself in. And so, in a sense, that for whom the whole motif and suggestion of prison and catastrophe functions the most advantageously, inasmuch as the motif or the compulsion and the refluxes that sort of surround, like our flesh and blood is meant to surround some sort of violent, never-ending storm in our own sexual function, the world with its compulsions and the justifications, beyond all rational scrutiny of the ways that people are impelled and compelled and organized and the like by major curses, spells, and lies in every direction, as far flung as the stars and as deep as their petroleum. as far back and as psychological as the Garden of Eden, in a place where torture was brought into the world, in the beginning, literally in the words, in the beginning, and in the figure and story and character and geometry of Adam and Steve. Adam, which is a womb, and a two womb, a womb and the tomb of the womb, built into the Adam and Steve situation. And more just fit right in there. Boom. And just think about what breathes life into that. What has breathed life into that world? What breathes life into it now? What in Spiritus Santos breathes life into that, hey? When you breathe life into their words, their curses, ways of living, professional observances, selective listening, hearing, and thinking, just different types of words that people say to me come from different parts of their mind at the same time, and I'm able to analyze from a sense of demonism, a sense of maybe sometimes on some level trying to do me a favor, on another level giving a perfect impression of their training at a level that seems perfectly self-evident to them. And all of these things in response to stimuli that I might be providing in various situations that could be construed in the entire comprehension as extreme violence and unprovoked violence. And imagine being sensitive enough to pick that up and see that, and being able to stay a peaceful man day to day, that I can read the subconscious of other people and have learned a depth of my mind that I can see the different levels that various curses are coming from, pronouncements and oaths that they make around me and above me. And the most difficult I find, as I make more of a study, is those coming from the person with whom I share a home, my mother. The things that just pop out of her mouth, and the energy is just I just can't always protect myself because there's this opening between us. Yeah, it's quite unfortunate, and you have to say well, what part of the mind is that coming from? It's not a part of the mind that's really being used by her. Actually, it's probably getting into frequencies where a lot of what could be properly called the range of operation of a good deal of her volition is being used by other energies. And I've confirmed this in many experiences. And I was waiting to be picked up yesterday, and just as soon as my mom was approaching me, there was another male, clearly demonic, approaching me from another direction. And even as he passed by, I could feel his demonic. My mom's first opening remarks to me were actually quite disrespectful, weirdly passive-aggressive sort of way. And she gets like that quite often when I'm with her in public. I've noticed more and more. Very dismissive of me, and she doesn't want to be seen with me. And it's a really ugly feeling. And these are the things that slowly dawn on me over time, because my mom doesn't really tell me much, but I don't think she's even really aware of it. And I don't think she's conscious of it. And if she ever did become conscious of it, she could have a psychosis. So I practice nonchalance. And nonchalance is a way that I deal with being around psychotic people most of my life, where you just you have to pretend like you can't notice certain things about their behavior, because if you pointed it out to them, it may not seem like it at first, but it would be almost definitively, I would say, counted against you. It wouldn't be seen as a learning opportunity necessarily by anyone who would sort of give their mind over to that energy in the first place. It's that you're talking to like a government office when you talk to them, and I felt this so acutely from people that I think I saved myself a lot of grief over the years, on top of the grief I already suffered from various people, like alcoholics with whom I lived, when I didn't bother applying to their reason. And when you get mad at them, you're just applying to the reasoning faculties of someone who's already very definitively demonstrated that they're not reasonable. Now, it's not to be counted against you that you had this hope for yourself and them that they might be capable of acting like a dignified being. So count it not against yourself. But nonetheless, you may find it's quite futile to ever attempt to apply to such people under those circumstances. And I hope in the way that I've put that, it makes it perfectly clear. And I was always very grateful to have come to this understanding, and I hope other people will be just as grateful to receive it. I mean, I think it's very fucking important. I do. That's why I put it. I mean, it is tools for surviving. And it's, just they're not using those parts of their brain. So, and that's the saving grace. Then you don't have to get stuck reacting in a volatile way. You might have a day or two where you feel like, oh, holy fuck, that didn't feel good. But you find better ways of dealing with that by learning that people come from different levels of their brain. They're the people you know, and then they're not the people you know. And sometimes they're not the people you used to know ever again. You might wake up one day living with someone and be like, when's the last time they really said anything nice to you? When's the last time you felt like they said something that made you smile? When's the last time they even told a joke? When's the last time they didn't dismiss you? Like, I reach a certain level of joyfulness in my day, and my mom just sort of bats me to one side like a puppy, And in that joyful state, she can bat me to one side because I'm in a joyful state, which has a kind of natural protection. But then my joy dissipates very quickly, you see. And she does that when I come home quite often. I just full, my chest bursting with joy of the day I've had. And yesterday I finished a long, long walk, many, many hours. And my mom was picking me up, and I just really fell to the ground after basically just making it to the minute because she had complained about, me being late. I hadn't been in the past, but she felt as though I had, and she had deemed it such a difficult offense that she had began to drive away, even though I was basically just walking up to the car. And if it hadn't been for some random man yelling at her, she would have gone. And she told me this the last time we did this. She laughed like, ho, 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 I was going to drive away. Excuse me. And she sent me texts, which she later asked me if she could erase, saying, hey, get yourself home, good luck, it's your own fault, that type of thing. Ruining the idea of ever picking me up in the first place, even though it turned out that it was actually her impatience which caused the situation. Interfered with her cognitive function. She might have had a drink already, I don't know. And this time, just as soon as I saw her, joy just batted my joy down, got home, batted more of my joy down, went about her night as if she'd done nothing. And that's that demonic energy. And I see it again and again and again, and then I have to sort of be philosophical about it. Wow, I've endured this ball-busting, psychopath for a long time. And I love my mom. I love every opportunity I get to have a mom, which kind of pops out of the clouds every now and then. And that's basically how it is. It's not even that, I don't know what it is that's popping out of the clouds, but something pops out of the clouds. And over time, I've learned that I'm putting a lot into that sun popping out of the clouds. My energies and my power is basically going a lot into getting that son of my mother to pop out of the cloud. And she knows very little about what's going on, the evil in our home, and how I'm battling it every day. For her, for me, for our dog. From witches, from curses. And people don't even need to know they're witches cursing people. That's the great thing about it. But the great thing about that idea, that hypothetical, is that those people who already practice a lot of mental hygiene will be like, what to one person is just useless paranoia is something to keep your mind alert. Because, guess what? People can be deceitful. People don't even have to want to be deceitful. You're a clear-thinking man or woman. You don't think in one dimension or two dimension. You live in three dimensions, so you think in at least three dimensions at all times. At least, right? So people may be unclear, they may be misinformed, but deception may be had, regardless of how many levels of people are just perfectly content doing their job. So you guard yourself, and lo and behold, you have a mind to do it, and lo and behold, there is some satisfaction in that. That the world is inimical to our well-being must be, in a matter of fact, that is of dubious import depending on where you're walking. And the descent in the level of import is the first and often very useful indicator of the dangers that abound around you.